Hey, it's Friday. Welcome to Nutmeg Tavern. You know, I want to welcome all you folks. Come on in, have a seat. There's some extra chairs and tables over there. If you need something, you can ask our server. Anyway, I am your host, John Townsend, and we are joined finally, behind the bar is Ryan.
Hello. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to be here. He's been gone like for a month or whatever. I've been having to do this all by myself. Well, with the help of Aaron on the console.
Hello.
There he is. He's mouthful of cookie.
I'm eating the last meal at Ichabod.
Yeah, he's got some ginger cakes there.
Somehow the last meal of Ichabod's gone stale.
Still good. I kept them in a whale bladder, so they're still fresh.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
They're really good.
It's good to be back in this rowdy place.
Thank you guys for coming in on Wednesday for the Sleepy Hollow live stream. Man, that was fun.
Yeah.
We are definitely going to do more of that because it was an enjoyable time, and I hope everyone out there enjoyed it. We got lots of feedback, and couldn't have been better, really. It's actually a lot of fun doing those readings, even from this end. You know, just you actually kind of feel it as you're reading along, and I really enjoy doing those readings. As a father, I enjoy have enjoyed reading to my children. I still enjoy reading to Ivy at times. And sometimes as a family, we read things at Christmas or whatever. And kind of giving those readings is always, I really enjoy that. So I'm glad you guys enjoyed it too. Hey, we also had, what was it? Yesterday the poll went up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have an official winner of naming, not the Nutmeg Tavern. Some people were confusing that we were renaming the Nutmeg Tavern. No. We're naming the boar himself, who's on the sign.
Yep.
Yep.
Seems
and you can stick around to the end of the live stream to find... No, I'm joking.
No, oh, I couldn't believe it. We didn't talk about that. Okay, no, we will reveal the winner now. That is...
Well, wait. Let's go through them all.
Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
tell you how many votes.
Okay, you got it. I don't have those
The
numbers.
polls have closed. This is the most important election this week.
No.
This week.
Yeah, this week. 22,000 votes.
Is that crazy? Is that amazing?
Okay.
You guys really care about this board.
Yes. Coming in at fourth. This one crushed me because this is what I wanted to win. Coming in at fourth, Chris P. Bacon with 12% of the vote.
That was my favorite one.
No. Coming in third, Hamilton with
Okay.
14% of the vote.
Okay.
Coming in third with 29% of the vote is Boromir. And
Boromir's
the
a good one.
Yeah.
Was that yours?
I don't know. I can't.
It was mine. I'll take credit for
I
that.
Yeah,
can't
you can
believe
ta- you
that
can
this
have
was
that
a landslide.
This was a landslide. Yeah,
Unprecedented.
the people have spoken. The winner with 45% of the vote, it wasn't even close, Sir Francis Bacon
Man.
is officially the name of the boar.
Yes.
Sir Francis Bacon.
Congrats to Sir Francis Bacon.
We need to do a knighting ceremony, probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And he enjoys nutmeg every
People
day.
want to recount.
No.
Election tomfoolery is afoot.
No.
I want to make so many jokes right now.
No.
Oh.
The results are final. They have been verified
By me.
by me, and the official winner is
Right.
Sir Francis Bacon.
All hail.
Well, the poll was done through YouTube, the same people that make sure that you get all of your bell notifications, so we know nothing's gone wrong.
You know, see, now I'm questioning this.
Ugh.
No, that's the winner. It wasn't even close.
I just, again, want to say so many things, but I'm just not going to go there. So, today's topic. I didn't want to leave Sleepy Hollow behind before we touched on. I didn't have a chance as we were doing the reading. I really wanted to stop. It's like, hey, let's talk about this. So this is our chance to, hey, let's stop. Let's talk about this. We're not talking about the scary, spectral parts of Sleepy Hollow per se, but actually what he says here that we can glean and learn historically. Now, you might counterintuitively think, now, are you going to fiction to learn about the 18th century? Well, yes, especially if it's fiction written during the time period or fiction written right after it. It tells us a lot about 1820 when this was published, and it certainly tells us about the 18th century, at least what they thought about the 18th century just a generation later. So there's a lot to glean from this, and even fiction we can learn from, because obviously this isn't science fiction. He's not necessarily inventing a past, or at least inventing something that's incredible or fantastical about the past, but a real past. Obviously, one that is seen through the eyes of an author there to tell a story. But he's not telling us things that aren't necessarily true about food or what kinds of food or whatever it is. So so the description of the environment, I think, is fun and good. The description of the abundance, the opulence, even at least for 1820, this language is incredible, isn't it? I mean, as I was reading it, I had to look up some words. I thought that was hilarious. Some of them ended up getting kind of edited out of the abridged version that I read. But even part of the abridgment, the language is just so good and interesting as we went through it. So I thought I would touch on the description of the schoolhouse. Thought was just great. His schoolhouse was a low building in one large room, rudely constructed logs. The windows partly glazed and partly patched with leaves of old copybooks, most ingeniously secured at the vacant hours by a withy twisted in the handle of the door and stakes set against the window shutters, so that a thief might get in with perfect ease, but he would find some embarrassment in getting out. The schoolhouse and what the learning was like. Now, some of that, again, we abridged that because we really wanted to get to, we abridged it down to, hey, let's get the descriptions of the people, let's get the descriptions of the food specifically, and then, we don't want to leave behind the story. So we took out some of these things talking about, what the students were like or whatever. But again, it's like, okay, they're learning in a school, it's like, think about a one-room schoolhouse, but it's rudely constructed. It's very, very primitive. You can think our cabin may be a little bit bigger and not very many windows. It's going to be dark inside. It's going to be pretty darned crude in its construction and inexpensive, at least compared to the house of, say, Van Houten that we get to Van Tassel, that we get to see later on, or at least see in our mind's eye as he describes it. But the learning that's going on here and the style of learning, it's kind of one-room schoolhousey, but with a twist. And I think we could definitely see the differences if we really got into it, if we really got into the text, say comparing it to something like A Little House on the Prairie, we're on one-room schoolhouse. So there's definitely some differences there. He talks a lot about the clothing, especially when we get to the party. Let's see if here we go. He gets to the party and he talks about, old farmers, a spare leathern-faced race, in homespun coats and breeches, blue stockings, huge shoes, magnificent pewter buckles, and then the wives with crimped caps, long-waisted short gowns, homespun petticoats with scissors, pincushions, calico pockets. So there's an interesting juxtaposition here that especially from our 21st century or 20th century take, we might not get here. is that the clothing he's describing is all very outmoded. It's all very old-fashioned. And we can understand that a lot easier if we dig into, say, the cartoons, English cartoons mostly, of the 18th century. And the Dutch were always made fun of. The caricature in those cartoons from the 18th century is always that the Dutch are wearing clothing styles that are like 100 years old. The same thing is going on here in this text. He's describing people wearing clothing that is, and when I say a generation, I mean much more than 20 years, a generation old, say a generation of fashion in that time period. So they're wearing clothing that's 1750 or 1700 style clothing instead of, say, 1800 or 1790 when this is supposed to be set. The clothing that, the whole description of Ichabod himself, just totally hilarious. When he goes into talking about Ichabod, a man of letters, therefore, was peculiarly happy amongst the smiles of the country dames, how he would figure among them in the churchyard. Wait a minute, let me skip down to this. From his half-itinerant life, he was a kind of traveling gazette, carrying the whole budget of local gossip from house to house, so that his appearance was always greeted with satisfaction. We get this interesting take on how news is traveling. So they don't have newspapers per se, or maybe the newspapers are all sort of bigger regional. So all the local news is happening with somebody like him carrying the news around. And we even, if we go digging into the 18th century, we say there are other people who travel around, itinerant workers, and they're doing the same kind of thing. Like knife grinders are known to be one of those sort of local gossips. They would go from house to house and they tell you a story about what happened to the neighbors, or what they saw at the neighbor's house. So he's doing that same kind of thing. I also thought it was interesting here. He was moreover esteemed by the women as a man of great erudition, for he had read several books quite through and was a perfect master of Cotton Mather's history of New England witchcraft. Later on, he describes this kind of interplay between the Dutch housewives and Ichabod. So Ichabod is telling stories about Connecticut. He's telling stories about stories from Cotton Mather's history. And Cotton Mather's history is set, again, 60 or 100 years earlier. That book is telling stories that are old by the time of even 1790. So most of those ideas have already sort of moved on in this 1790s society, and yet Ichabod's telling those stories, the ones that are a bit more supernatural in their content. The Dutch housewives, they are telling their own ghost stories, haunted houses, haunted roads, haunted churchyards, haunted bridges. There's definitely a big cultural change here that if we didn't know what was going on, we wouldn't catch it. So being from Connecticut, Ichabod's sort of cultural connections are completely different, and the superstitions are very, very different from what's happening in Connecticut to what's happening in this enclave of Dutch ancestry. So they've got a different concept of what's scary, what they're superstitious about, versus Ichabod, who's from a different area. And you can see the interplay there. He's getting certain kinds of stories from the housewives, and he's giving them back a different sort of history, a history that is a Connecticut-based thing and more New England, English New England than, say, the Dutch stories that he's coming up with. So there's actually a cultural interplay that's very important to the story that, again, from our modern eyes, it's like, what? He's in New York, everything's the same, right? That's New York, Connecticut, they're right beside each other. They're very, very different in 1790. I've got more. Do you want to go to questions or anything?
I've got some super chat stuff. There aren't a whole lot of questions coming in right now.
Okay.
But we can do the super chat real quick. Okay, so Michael Miranda, are you planning any stone or brick structures for the homestead? Keep up the fantastic work and happy Halloween.
Okay.
So,
You want me to answer that one?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, yeah. Stone or brick structures, it's probably something that we should. I don't personally have that in my to-do list right this second, but my to-do list is way out there. So it should probably be in my, yes, I should do that. It's not something I've got a lot of experience with, building with those sorts of building components. And it always seems very daunting to me. So maybe that's definitely something I should have on my to-do list. Yes.
in the chat, somebody is asking if we have or would be willing to do any videos on 18th century, 17th century maps and map making.
Yeah, it is a fascinating the technology and the way those maps were constructed. So today we think, yeah, you want to make a map. I mean, you get one of those satellite images and you trace over the top of it. How tough can it be, right?
Right.
Whoa. Can you imagine doing it all from ground level and just sort of, the river kind of, in a big sense, it's almost impossible to see what happens on a little tiny scale map. So it's really kind of rather hilarious to see how, the Mississippi or the Ohio River is drawn on 18th century maps because it's wildly out of place, just crazy out of place. Because, of course, it's almost impossible for us on the ground humans to get this sort of backed up perspective of an entire continent and get those things right because the scale is just so incredibly strange. So the technology of making maps is fascinating, and it would be great to find someone who really has that knowledge.
One of the comments in the chat section says that one of the characters in the story was suspicious of schooling. Do you think Washington Irving was making a comment on a common trend in U.S. society at the time?
That is a tremendous question in a lot of different ways, and I am not sure the take here because 1820 public education is so wildly different than anything we can even kind of imagine. So the early concepts of, say, state-sponsored education, most of that's coming out of New England, especially, say, Massachusetts, and very much so here in the early 19th century. So there's that public education part. Now, this wasn't public education. This was like private school. You paid and helped support a local instructor, and you sent your children or you didn't. There was no obligatory sending your children or property taxes that were specifically set for that. Some of that was happening in this time period, but not in this area. Was Washington Irving saying something about? So it was Hans von Ripper, I think, at the end, who's the executor of this state, and he that's in that very last page basically, and he's consigning some of the writings to the flames that he thought were improper writings, and then he's like, maybe none of this writing is. He's definitely doing the throwing the baby out with the bathwater kind of a thing. You could tell that from the writing style, from the vocabulary, that the author is a highly educated man, whether he's an autodidact, whether he's taught himself, or, I didn't actually go and quickly look up his schooling history, but he's probably kind of tongue-in-cheek there, that there's certain members of society who are like, you know what, too much learning is not a good thing. And in fact, there are many people in history now and in the past that have said there's a limit to what's actually good for people to to learn. Sometimes people can just get caught up in scholarship to the point where they actually aren't doing any good for anyone, just doing scholarship for scholarship's sake.
In the chat, somebody is asking if we plan to cook any turkeys in the earthen oven for Thanksgiving.
We had a discussion about that, didn't we?
Yeah.
I
I really want to cook a turkey.
Yes is the answer.
Yeah.
That's why we built the oven door that big.
It is.
Well,
That's
it's
what we
not
had
that
in mind.
big. But yeah, unless you've got a giant oven door, you're not going to be able to fit a turkey up unless you like dice them up, right? So yes. it's
So
the
when
answer.
when we were drawing dimensions for what we wanted it to be, that was the thing that we were talking about.
Yeah.
This is interesting. We just talked about this 2 days ago, I think. Always wondered why Ichabod would want to leave for Kentucky with Katrina. If she had a rich farm there in Sleepy Hollow, was the frontier that alluring?
Yeah, so that was actually one of the tags I had in here was that idea.
If it's a tag that you have in there, let's hold off on that. Let me get through some of these super chats real quick.
Okay, go for it.
Carol Haycockson in the donation without any comments, so thank you so much. S. Mackey, coin for the storyteller, thanks for the excellent Sleepy Hollow reading.
Thank you.
Ryan Mercer, Friday is upon us.
Woo!
Max are cool. A very happy Halloween to everyone.
Thank you.
Johnny
you.
Stranger and Nathan Kirk are new members. Thank you so much for
Yes.
that. Also, Jeremiah is a new member. Andrew Enneking, if you have more stories to read, John, I would be happy to listen. On that, some people are wondering about Rip Van Winkle. Maybe that's something in the future, I don't know.
Yeah, so basically, I'm open to anything that is pre-Civil War.
Okay.
I believe that we are looking at some Dickens in our future. Since this reading went so well, and of course I enjoy it, whether you enjoyed it or not, maybe it doesn't make a difference, right? Maybe I'm just going to do it. So yeah, some more readings. We want to. We're looking at different ways to package that, I guess.
Yeah.
I'd really like to do Nicholas Cresswell as a series and some other pieces.
We've talked about including some Jane Austen stuff.
Yes, some of that. I don't know about reading Jane Austen,
Right.
but at least touching on that as a basis for certain episodes. So yeah, I really we specifically have sort of stayed away from fiction in the past, but I think that's a mistake. I think fiction's a really important part of what's happening in the 18th century and in the early 19th century, and I think it helps us a lot to understand what's going on in that time period. And so, yes.
Apathy Kitten is in Super Chat. Thank you for the content. Jeremiah, penny for the bartender from Cameron and Musa. Stephanie Clay, is a new member. David Parker in Super Chat. A round of grog for the crew. Matthew H. So what's the stag's name now? Oh, I kid. Any chance of Nutmeg Necromancer shirt? My wallet is ready. Thanks for all you guys do. Matthew, I almost had an ulcer, right? Yeah, I felt it. Kim 7, is there any utilitarian value to the shape of your hat? Or is it pure of an aesthetic value?
Well, we've spoken in the past. Am I ready to go?
Yeah, but you gotta make these short and sweet.
There's never enough time, is there?
Well, we only gave ourselves an hour today.
So the hat is see how it's kind of round on top, but by the time you get to the bottom, it's not round. And we look at the hat like this way, we look at the hat that way, right? So, the hat shape is somewhat of a forced design. The way people's heads are and the way they made hats in the 18th century sort of forced the hats to turn out into the shape. And if you wanted that mid-19th century hat shape, or especially later on, the one where it kind of flares out at the top, takes some very special hat blocks. Takes a lot of time to make a hat that's shaped in that manner. This sort of hat style is what happens when you take a round blocked hat and you turn it into an oval where it fits a person's head and turns out to be wider at the bottom this way, and you turn the hat this way and it actually kind of sticks out a little bit at the top. So I mean, like anything else, it's fashion. And part of what the hat design is not functional at all. It's what's fashionable and who's driving fashion and how that all works. You got me.
They are certainly more utilitarian than a tricorn hat, where
Yeah.
there's shade that's offered and that sort
A
of thing.
little,
Right,
I guess.
a little bit, but it's a looker.
Yeah. Okay.
Megan Nelson sends in a super chat without a comment. Linda Nagany is a new member. Amber Crystal Doter. How would you set up an outhouse at your site to be safe? How well did they do
Safe.
with that in the 18th century before Jon Snow and the Broad St. Pump? I don't know. Broad.
Am I answering that one?
Yeah, go for it.
Strangely enough, in the county that we're in, it's legal to have an outhouse. If it's if your property is a particular size, if you're so far away from the property line, and the outhouse is a particular distance away from the well. Were they very good about all that in the 18th century? No, they weren't. They weren't all that specific about it. Some folks were probably like particular. It's like, no, you don't put the outhouse right beside the well. I mean, duh. But so how would we do it? Well, I mean, I would try to follow the regulations as much as possible if I was going to. They're a particular depth. They're a certain space away from wherever you're getting water and what's happening. We don't have where the cabinet's not the best soil type for that sort of thing because it doesn't really drain very well because it's very dense clay. But that's how I would do it.
C.H. Davis in Super Chat, been reading about differences between the Cavalier/Southern tradition and the Puritan/Northeast one. Have any info on this regarding Halloween?
Albion Seed. He talks about superstition and some superstition. There's also a section where he talks about death ways. So there's a bunch in Albion Seed that would juxtapose those two cultures, and so that would be where I would point people at.
David Donnelly in Super Chat, what kind of Wiccan oil was used in the Betty lamp? Is there a modern oil that is similar?
They're going to use, in the time period, any waste oil in the house. Cooking oils, most likely. So, bacon fat, muscle fat from whatever animal. You could use other, suets or whatever, but they're not going to get as liquid as you want them to be. That's the standard oil that's being used. And wicks, you're going to use any kind of, little bit of rope, flax rope, cotton scraps, any of those sorts of things for a time period like wick. Today we would probably be, we would lay a lamp wick in there, and it would work better than most of those time period wicks.
Stephanie Clayton in Super Chat, I just wanted to say my husband has bought me several items from your store online for my birthday, and they have all been wonderful items. Thanks again for providing high quality items and knowledge.
Great.
John Kennington in Super Chat, Cricket on the Hearth or A Christmas Carol.
Okay.
Sebastian got married yesterday. Well, congratulations.
Yes.
And our wedding ceremony was 18th century. It was absolutely beautiful.
Ooh.
Also using very old camera as well, so it looks 18th century.
Cool.
That sounds like a cool idea. Fleur de Fleur. Flove? Yeah. Scholarship for scholarship's sake. Beau Fleuve became anglicized to Buffalo, and that's kind of how this username is pronounced.
Okay.
Okay. Carmen Abel, love your outfit, very fall-like. And Noctilus Emitter, more talk on the Delulin, please.
On the what?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Deluhan? I don't know. Deluhan. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, so back to Kentucky. The frontier.
Yes,
Missouri.
yes. So let me see if I can find it. Where is it? So he sees all this Wonderful stuff as he's going to Von Tassel's house, right? And yes, here we go. Nay, his busy fancy already realized his hopes and presented him with the blooming Katrina with a whole family of children mounted on the top of a wagon loaded with household trumpery, with pots and kettles dangling beneath, and he beheld himself bestride a pacing mare with a colt at her heels, setting out for Kentucky or Tennessee or Lord knows where. So you can see, in fact, if we back up just a little bit, yes, he says, and money invested in immense tracts of wild land and shingle palaces in the wilderness. So imagine you're trading like a really nice farm, but that really nice farm might be 100 acres, 200 acres. And you're saying, yeah, I'm willing to go out to Kentucky or Tennessee and have 1,000 acres, 2,000 acres. I mean, people were able to kind of lock up very large pieces of ground and become sort of like a baron at the time. And that's what he's sort of going for here. We think of it today as, well, kind of a lateral trade. Well, I moved from this place to another place, maybe my house, maybe it's twice as good as, the other place. But in this case, the wealth doesn't reside necessarily with the dwellings, but the actual quantity of land and its possible future worth. So here he's thinking, yeah, how can I sell out here with just something just super nice, but wow, I could like buy a small country by going out there and sort of staking my claim with what I have from here. And there are lots of different situations where you see people sort of doing that same thing. Nolan's book, The Bark-Covered House, his family does basically that. I think they're actually from New York, I think. And they're selling up their farm and they're going to Michigan and buying up a very large piece of acreage. Obviously, it's massive wilderness, and they have to build a little, leaky log cabin to live in the first year. But it's that, how do we trade up for this very large piece of land that might in the future be worth a tremendous quantity? Or again, maybe not worth as in, a monetary worth, but look at my kingdom almost. It's just that much bigger and impressive. So I think that's what we're looking at there when he's talking about, trading up, taking his, all the very, very nice things that he can fit in a wagon as much as he can jam in there. And he's got his pacing mare, a very nice horse with a colt. Again, that's sort of like, I've got even the next generation horse with me that's going to be trained up because horses are like cars. They wear out. And it's like, well, it's only good for 10 years or so, and then you've got to move on to that next generation. This one is worn out. It's going to die, or it can't support the same kind of work. That's what's happening here in that section. So again, that goal he's seeing for where he's going to go, where he wants to go, and what the possibilities can be for next generation. Talks about the Von Tassel house and describes it. And even that is a great section where he's describing a Dutch house of the time period. And he describes that partially because people in other parts of the country, that's not the kind of house they're going to live in. Even the way the roof is shaped and the way the house has a particular porch on it, that's not normal for the rest of the country. So he's describing that. Again, we would like, well, it's all strange to us, right? So we don't get the difference that he's describing here. How about that section where he can peek into the fancy parlor, someplace that he's not going to go. He's just visiting the main part of the house, but he can look into that. The corner cupboard says, a great ostrich egg was hung from the center of the room. It's like, he's got a giant bird's eggs from Africa hanging up in his house. That's pretty interesting. the corner cupboard knowingly left open, displaying an immense treasures of old silver and well-mended china. When was the last time you broke a piece of china and said, oh yeah, I want to have that mended, not just super glued together, but well-mended? Take somebody who spent a lot of money to have a piece of china put back together with little rivets. Have you ever seen that where they take, they'll like drill tiny holes and they'll put not rivets, but little golden sometimes staples that hold those pieces together with certain kinds of, we wouldn't call them necessarily cement, but cement of the time period. The china and the imported porcelain was so expensive that they would repair it. Again, we don't throw it over your shoulder, right? On you go. They have in their nice place well-mended china, not the cast-off stuff.
And some of that is probably saying, oh, I have the money to have this mended, right?
I think it's just I think it's even beyond that. It's
Okay.
the china was expensive and expensive
yes.
that they would. So number one, they have it, and number two, they have some that they've mended. Yeah.
So, just to be clear, a Dullahan apparently is the Irish name for a headless horseman-like monster. Had
Thank
no
you.
idea.
I had not either.
And
I love that.
Somebody was kind enough to pay money
To tell us
to
that.
tell me that.
Thank
And
you.
somebody else was also kind enough to say that one of their favorite pastimes is listening to me try to pronounce words. So
We should have a special best of Ryan
It's just
mispronouncing
me trying
things.
to read stuff.
Much
Yeah.
better than when I have to do.
I'm glad you're back.
None of your dang business sent in a donation without a comment. Mr. Radnev, or somebody, Radnev, I cannot pronounce the first name, says, hello from Russia. Thank you for sharing your passion and helping us enjoy the simple things. It's a welcome escape in these strange times. And Dot the Dice, sure. Sends in a super chat, says, love you guys.
Thank you. Before I go too much further, let me get to this week's Patreon names. I still have more to talk about here. And I could probably talk about Port Ichabod for the next 3 hours. Brand new Patreon names for this week: Deborah Goodwin, Teresa Potter, Mon Cher, Susan Brand, Mario Muzaki, just LS, Gretchen von Grebhart, David Koff, Steve Bolt, Matthew Z, I guess to go along with Matthew H, Kristen Ides, Jordan Galash, Shauna, and Philip Klum. Thank you, all of you. There are some more than 800 folks on Patreon that help us do what we do. We could not do it without you. So special thanks to those Patreon folks. Also, let's see. Again, I still have this, but I did want to talk about this new, it's already got tags in it, new book that we just had printed out. Salt has been a topic on the live stream a couple of different times. Always, it's like, what a strange, interesting, topic to kind of talk about. It's like, salt? Really? Yeah, salt. Isn't that great for 18th century salt, where it comes from, how they use it, why it's made this way or that way? We don't think much about salt. Some of us use sea salt. Some of us use, I don't know, that cheap salt you get in the store that's iodized or whatever. Do we give salt even a second thought? No. Salt is so important in the 18th century. This book is an 18th century book, or what is it? Is it 1804? No, 1748 book about how they made salt in the 18th century, where it's coming from, what happens when there's a war and you can't get the salt you normally get. There we go. It's available on our website. There's a link in the description
Right
section.
there, I just threw it in the chat.
Woohoo! Yeah, let me point to this one. Let me see if I got this one. Bay salt is not extracted from seawater in the colder parts of Europe, as on the sea coasts of as on the seacoasts of Germany, Denmark, or Sweden. In other words, they don't make it there, but in places situated in more southern climates, where the heat of the sun is more intense, as on the coasts of France, Spain, and Italy. Some people ask, why weren't they making salt in North America? Because, the British cut off our supply of salt, and because some places, even though you got all the salt water you want, it's just not, the environmental conditions are not right for extracting it. So this book talks about all that kind of stuff, where there were salt mines, whether they were extracted from the sea, whether this place had good salt or bad salt. That's the book on that.
There's apparently a vote going on of what difficult book I should read.
Oh, gosh. You guys just trying to torture us. It's terrible.
Man, that would be funny. I don't know who put the shelf here either. I keep banging into it.
I think
Speed
he
and
did.
Style, Tony's and Super Chat. Love the reading. Please do more. Fireside in the cabin, maybe. Lisa B sends in a kitty cat. Inez Santos sends in a Super Chat without a donation. And BG Owen, what's up?
Yeah.
Jerry Drake with no comment. I think I said donation before, but I meant comment. Man,
Thank you.
apparently that vacation didn't do me any good.
You're just getting back into the swing of it.
Going through it up here.
You're gonna be all right. Maybe that vacation didn't give you enough vacation. Maybe it was too much work.
Maybe. That must mean I need another week of vacation.
No. So, coming up.
Have Ryan read a Gaelic poem. Okay, I'm done. It's just cracking me up.
Monday, got a nice episode. Make sure to tune in on Monday. A sort of cooking episode. Well, I cook in it.
Yeah, I would. It'll go in a cooking playlist.
How's it going?
It's good.
Good.
It's really good.
Good. I haven't.
It's a little different.
Yeah, it's different. It'll be fun. That's Monday.
Relaxing.
Tuesday, tune in. I'll have a special video for Tuesday. One that, let's hopefully, stills the waters of your mind. We'll do a reading. We'll do a fun reading on Tuesday.
Stills the waters of your
Stills
mind.
the waters of your mind.
I just got chills.
I don't know.
when you
I don't
said
know what's
that.
going on next week. I don't know what the big deal is.
I got chills when you said
What?
that.
I know
John.
next week. Some people are like, next week, right? What? Is that where you're at, Aaron? Next week? What are you talking about, John, right?
I don't.
Anyway.
Something's happening on Tuesday. I don't know what.
Aaron's being sarcastic.
I think my wife's cooking something special. Anyway, Tuesday, we'll have a video, especially for Tuesday, that will have nothing to do with Tuesday. I hope you enjoy it.
But I do want the waters of my mind to be still.
I will still your waters whether you
That-
like it or not.
Oh, so here's Erin in Super Chat. Erin Howard, she's always coming in to be kind to me. Have fun, Ryan. And she wrote some kind of something.
Is it Welsh?
I don't know. It's got little marks above the E's and the A's. Anyway.
You guys are cruel.
Thanks, guys. You're so... It feels good to be back. You know?
Hey, anybody who's gone 2 Fridays in a row deserves a little, don't you think?
I'm going to tap into this rum back here and forget
Hey,
that anything's going on.
That PayPal in there is current, right? That's
Yeah.
still usable. Okay, someone was asking.
NPG Owen, coin for the bartender. Can't wait to get my oven fixed to bake all those ginger cakes.
They're
Thank you
good.
so
I
much.
ate all mine,
Yeah.
so there's some more down there on the floor.
Yeah, I might go get one.
Here, I'll throw one to you.
Don't be touching it, man.
Oh, fine. Here. Oh, wait. Okay.
Oh, man. We got to get back into this book now. There's some interesting
we're getting back
stuff
to the
we're not
book.
talking about. You guys are goofing off on the clock.
He just wants to eat more ginger cakes.
Pure vanilla.
The description of Brom Bones and what he thought was appropriate or not appropriate. So, Brom Bones gets described as, I don't know, like a real community troublemaker, but yet, you know, does anybody really call him out at all in this story? Does do the people in the neighborhood think, boy, that guy needs to be arrested or anything like that? Let's see. He had 3 or 4 boon companions who regarded him as their model, and at the head of whom he scoured the country, attending every scene of feud or merriment for miles around. In cold weather, he was distinguished by a fur cap surmounted with a flaunting fox's tail, and when the folks at the country gathered, descried this well-known crest at a distance. Whisking about among a squad of hard riders, they always stood by for a squall. Sometimes his crew would be heard dashing along past farmhouses at midnight with a whoop and a halloo like a troop of Don Cossacks. And the old dames, startled out of their sleep, would listen for a moment till the hurry and scurry had clattered by and then exclaim, "Ah, there goes Brom Bones and his gang." It sounds like, like they're drag racing and causing all kinds of, whooping and hollering in the neighborhood. And yet it's like, kids will be kids and that's life. I thought that it's interesting that the horseplay was very much an expected part of that generation. Those younger kids, they're just going to do that thing. That's what you do.
Would you say they were horsing around?
Yeah, I would say they were doing that.
We can't have any more comments like that. They're already thinking everybody's on the bottle in the chat.
Can't have a little fun.
Guess not.
Anyway.
It kind of reminds me of Christmas Story. Scott Farkas and his toadies. Right? Yes. Anyone?
Yeah. Very much so.
Oh, man.
Well, he calls them...
John, what are you drinking today?
I'm oolong tea.
Oolong tea with nutmeg, of course.
Well, duh.
I
Yes.
did switch to a little bit of rum, but just a little.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Another part that got edited out because, I couldn't read for 2 hours or an hour and a half straight. Let's see. The Birch of Justice reposed on 3 nails behind the throne. He's talking about the schoolhouse and Ichabod Crane being the schoolmaster. The Birch of Justice reposed on 3 nails behind the throne, a constant terror to evildoers. Guess you don't do that in school these days. While on the desk before him might be seen the sundry contraband, articles and prohibited weapons detected upon the persons of idle urchins, such as half-munched apples, pup guns, whirligigs, fly cages, and a whole legion of rampant little paper gamecocks. The description of the toys that the children had, I like that. I think that is great. Again, we can read into that. These are at least the toys that you would see in 1820, and more likely he's describing what he thinks are typical toys of, again, a generation earlier. So 1790, 1800, you pull any kid out of a lineup and what's in his pockets or what does he have to play with? That's what he has to play with. Wow. It is a great story. And that whole description, I love he's listening to the old wives telling him about haunted houses, haunted roads, haunted woods, it's like it just keeps going on and on. What are they concerned with? Haunted places. They're all worried about that. He's worried about something a little different. He comes from his background and Cotton Mather background of what was, and there's definitely a whole different. Again, Cotton Mather is sort of taking the 17th century ideas, not 18th century, but 17th century ideas about what's going on and what nature is and, the world around them. Definitely a twist, a change happens in the 18th century and what most, I don't know. Again, this is sort of implying, kind of pulling out. I don't know if standard society, regular, everyday folks were still as superstitious as they might have been, say, in the 17th century. But there's definitely a feel that that's going away to a certain extent, and he's sort of giving us that tug and feel about by the 1820 those things have sort of disappeared, and he's saying, think back on those times when maybe this was a bit more important to society. And maybe that's a kickback on his part, saying maybe by 1820 we've gotten a little too scientific, and we should be, harkening back a little bit to our roots. A good bit different 200 years later about how we feel about those things, and definitely there is an ebb and flow about how people feel about how technological and scientific we are, and have we lost something. Getting back to our roots in nature. So I think there's a lot that to be analyzed and understood, that if we just read this off the top, off the cuff, hey, it's a really neat story, and the writing is just so interesting, so fun. But there's a lot deeper there that we can kind of get at and analyze.
Somebody is wondering how abridged your version here is.
So the abridged version I read took me 51 minutes to read, plus or minus 10 seconds, 51 minutes or so. I think the full unabridged took me hour 30, hour 20. So we definitely did a lot of abridgments so that we could get it down into that underneath an hour. He'll spend like half a page or a whole page talking about, birds twittering in the bushes. It's fun to read, right. But my voice is only, good for so long.
Yeah, and you sound like your voice was pretty much shot when you came down after reading that too.
Yeah.
Somebody in the JMG, that's what it is, JMG Gaming. Holy crap, I caught you live.
Yay!
I freaking love your channel. That's awesome. We're live every Friday at 4 o'clock. Eastern.
As often as we can possibly do.
Every Friday at 4. If we're not here, then you can imagine that something has happened. Yep. And we're very, very busy.
Yeah, we might be at an event or something, but that doesn't happen much. Didn't happen much this year, that's for sure.
So NPG Owen, I think I read that one. Yes, I did. Crafts for Others sent in a super chat with the letter L.
Definitely. I approve of the letter L, especially Rebel L.
Took an L.
Wendy Carr, I just really appreciate you all. No stress, just smiles. Keltoid 5, my request for reading with analysis. The Adventures of Baron Munchausen?
Munchausen, yes.
Munchausen.
Yeah.
See, there we
Baron
go.
von Munchausen.
And that's all I've got in Super Chat.
Yeah, if you've got other ideas about interesting things to read in the time period, especially, some of them are big works, and I will, we'll maybe just find sections. At least in one episode, I don't want to have to read for more than an hour at a time. I could do it, but wow, but it's fun. It's always just reading along and getting the flow of a piece, and even this piece has got some incredible flow to it as you read it. But it's very it's got a totally different kind of punctuation than we're used to. But it's very much almost written in that he's talking to us style, which is definitely a change from a lot of 18th century pieces. That can be very, very stiff in the reading. And this one is, let's sit down and he's going to tell me a story. As in he's just talking to me. So that's fun. With all those kind of clauses within clauses as you're going along, it is hilarious. So I enjoy that so much. And sometimes it's a lot easier to get that in a verbal way than reading it out. Always found that a good performance of Shakespeare is so much easier to get than just trying to read it dry. And you're just like, I don't get it. But once the person who's reading it knows, what's trying to be said here and what's being funny and what's being serious, boy, it just it takes it into 3D, doesn't it? So I truly enjoy reading some of these pieces. It is a lot of fun.
So Cecil S. is in the chat and says, thanks so much for hosting this, guys. I'm working from home and I'm getting stressed, but seeing you guys have a good time and talk about such wholesome things makes me happy.
Cool.
Well, thank you.
You know, I think we can all take a page out of not stressing.
So some folks are wondering what our thoughts on different versions of this story, whether it's Tim Burton or the Disney, or apparently there was one with Jeff Goldblum that I didn't know about.
I've seen that one.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's
So-
pretty bad.
Have you seen any of those, Sean?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
I actually really like the Tim Burton one.
So
but
do I.
It's not like the story. at
No,
all.
no, but it's a
horror
it's a great movie.
My favorite Sleepy Hollow film adaptation or whatever. There's a cartoon that Glenn Close narrated, and it's all like cut out paintings that move. It's not like super animated.
Right.
That's probably my favorite one. And the Disney one's actually pretty
I
cool,
watch
too.
the Disney one annually with my kids. It's a lot of fun.
Go on, look up Sleepy Hollow cartoon Glenn Close, and there's probably like a copy on DVD on Amazon or something. We used to get that from the library all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my opinion on some of these is that I like some of those, and I think they're great stories. But I almost think that you really should at least hear us just straight reading first.
Sure. Yeah.
Just because those are, even a straight reading is going to have interpretation to it. I was interpreting some of that, obviously. But I don't like to have too much interpretation before I read the real thing, because I don't want some cartoon to set my mind in this content before I get to do the interpretation of it. Like, even like a Lord of the Rings or something like that. It's like, boy, it's a lot of effort to read it, or at least hear a good audio version of it. It's like the visuals, it can solidify it in a way that's limiting compared to just reading it or getting a good reading of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Noctilus Immature sends in a super chat, 1776. I must compliment the lighting on the Sleepy Hollow video.
Thank you. Yeah, we always have fun kind of, even the technology or the technique of shooting, the cinematography, the lighting. I mean, Aaron and I, Ryan, we love playing with all the things that is the creation of content. What is the best way for us to communicate this thing, and how can we have fun with even the techniques of doing it? Again, they are part of the communication method. When we're talking to somebody, it's like, can you hear it right? What's the audio like? What's the lighting like? How do we do that the very best way we can with the equipment we have, whatever? And hey, it's because you guys help us out. Are we there?
I'm trying to figure out what Sue is saying. Please ask about my book, and then she said I can send you an 1852 history book.
Okay. I've always been a fan of early 20th century and pre-history books, because history was written in a different way in that time period. And definitely sometimes it's like, okay, why did they put this in a history book? Which is completely different than history today. Our histories today tend to be political histories, right? What's happening in politics? What's happening in grand movements of policies or whatever? When it's like, what are people's lives like? That's what I want out of history.
Sue, if you would like to send us a book, you're welcome to. I don't think that I found the beginning of what you were talking about, but thank you very much. And Aaron Howitt is right. It is last call.
Yeah, last call. In fact, we're over time, folks. He's going to start turning the chairs upside down and turning off the lights and blowing out the candles to kick us out. It has been a tremendous Friday. It's always such a welcome time to be able to get together with you guys, to kick back, to relax, get a drink. Maybe he'll make us a nice hot chocolate or something. Yeah?
Sure.
Maybe. He might. if you ask nicely. You know, maybe he's got some ginger cakes hidden behind the bar.
I get pretty busy back here. I get preoccupied.
Yeah.
Might have to slam your hand down on the counter to get my attention.
Yeah. That's if you ever show up. So, anyway, we always have a good time, and I'm glad you're able to come in and have a good time with us. Kick back and relax. We all need a little of that, especially this year. So, have a great weekend. Thank you, folks that support us every way. Watching this video, watching a regular video, commenting, sharing them, that is amazing support. If you want to go above and beyond and you want to help us out with Patreon or with Super Chat, again, you guys truly make it happen. I cannot, just create things and shove them into the void. It takes that feedback that you guys give that makes it happen. I couldn't do it any other way. Thank you for your tremendous support. Have an amazing weekend. Get out there. Enjoy the fall weather. I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching.